Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Monday evening, hope you all are doing well, hope you all had a fabulous start to your week. We are going to sit down this evening and talk about Anthony Gordon. The young English forward has been heavily linked with a move to Chelsea over the last 24 hours or so. We sort of touched on it during the player ratings video yesterday, but I did make a point of saying that we were going to do a sit-down live stream today talking about it in much, much more detail. There has, of course, been advancements since last night in this sort of saga that we've got going on, and obviously we'll go through all of those as we go through the live stream. Of course, the main question I suppose is, will Anthony Gordon leave Everton to join Chelsea this summer? Should Everton allow Anthony Gordon to leave the football club? There have been a lot of discussions and a lot of conversations over the last 24 hours or so from fans, some of whom believe Everton would be silly to allow Anthony Gordon to leave given his age, given his potential, given his desire and commitment shown when he puts on that royal blue shirt, and some Blues believe that the rumoured fee that has been floating around would simply be too good for Everton to turn down, especially for a player who has come through our academy, which means obviously anything we make on him will be profit, which will go nicely with our FFP situation, as well as the fact that, the rumoured fee is quite significant for a player who, whilst had a good season last season and a decent breakthrough season, and obviously was a massive part in Everton's survival in terms of his desire, his commitment, his passion, his fight. His statistics last season weren't particularly great. They certainly weren't that of a £50 million footballer, which is the obviously the figure that is currently being floated around now. I think sort of the main point is for Anthony Gordon is that whilst I think the figure of £50 million that has been floated about, obviously we read yesterday that Chelsea had a bid of around between 40 and £45 million rejected. Some sources saying it was 40, some sources saying it was 43, other sources saying that there hasn't been a bid at all submitted by Chelsea and there's only interest at this moment. Obviously, we don't know what's right and what's not right at the moment. However, let's take, for example, the bid of £43 million being rejected. I don't think it's particularly a case of Anthony Gordon being a £43-44 million player now. I mean, if we look at his stats from last season, he played 35 Premier League games, scored 4 goals and got 2 assists last season. He also played 4 FA Cup games with 1 assist and 1 League Cup game with no goal contributions. He obviously had a spell in the Championship the year before with 11 Championship games, no goals, no assists, and obviously played a couple of Premier League games before he moved to the Championship. His breakthrough season, or the season where he first really sort of come onto the scene, was that season with Carlo Ancelotti. He played 11 Premier League games with 1 assist, but obviously last season was his massive season, 35 Premier League games, 4 goals, 2 assists. And you look at those stats and you would think, well, does those statistics warrant a £45 million footballer? And I would say it doesn't. However, obviously, the stats don't tell the full story. The stats don't tell you about his effort, his commitment, his desire, how pivotal he was in, the attitude change at Everton Football Club, or certainly within the squad at Everton Football Club last season, in terms of players rolling the socks up, working hard, battling, fighting for the club and fighting to keep Everton in the Premier League. I think Anthony Gordon was a real sort of, a stalwart of that, and almost one of the first players who instilled that mentality into everybody else. I don't think it's a question as to whether or not Anthony Gordon's worth £45 million now. I think it's more of a question as to, will Anthony Gordon be worth more than £45 million in the coming years? Obviously, he's got a ridiculous amount of potential. His effort, his desire, his commitment is all there to be shown. The reality of the situation is his final product isn't good enough. I think this is where it sparks the debate: is can Everton really afford to turn down a bid which could be towards the region of £50 million for a lad who got 4 assists and 2 goals last season, 6 goal contributions in 35 games? Can Everton really afford, in the financial position that we're in, to turn down that money, given it will all be profit, it will all be clear, fresh money that will go straight back in to potentially bringing in 2 or 3 players that could completely transform this side? Now, let's wind back a little bit and have a little look at where these rumours are coming from, because if you've been living under a rock, you'll be sitting here saying, Cam, why are we even talking about this? Where does this come from? So this all started yesterday, as I said, early on yesterday afternoon. I'd like to say it come out of nowhere, but there has been murmurs, around the last sort of couple of weeks or so, that Anthony Gordon was attracting some attention. As I said, yesterday afternoon, I was sitting there. It was a Sunday. I had a nice little walk. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, according to Tom Roddy and Paul Joyce, Chelsea are interested in signing Everton's Anthony Gordon. Everton currently value Gordon at around £50 million. Everton have showed an interest in Chelsea forward Armando Broja, who could leave on loan. We also had Lee Ryder saying that Chelsea have put a bid in of £40 million for Anthony Gordon this afternoon. That was obviously yesterday. Newcastle had held talks with Everton over a £35 million deal earlier in the summer, but it has alerted Chelsea with high-level talks following swiftly. Sky Sports then reported that a £40 million bid for Anthony Gordon had been submitted. Nathan Gisling, who is a DiMarzio reporter, he then reported that the bid of £40 million from Chelsea was rejected by Everton. Sammy Mockbell of the Daily Mail reported that Chelsea have indicated a willingness to pay £40 million for Anthony Gordon. However, Everton are believed to value Anthony Gordon at £50 million. Discussions between the clubs are to continue this week. Personal terms for Gordon won't be an issue. Simon Stone then reported that Chelsea are likely to come back in with a higher offer for Anthony Gordon. There is a potential for a cash plus player loan deal, and then mentions Armando Broja and Conor Gallagher. Apparently, well-placed sources told the BBC that a deal for Anthony Gordon could be done in the coming days, as personal terms will not be an issue. So there's a common theme here. The common theme is Chelsea are very clearly interested in Anthony Gordon. A number of sources reporting that a bid has been placed of £40-odd million, and also those reports stating that personal terms between Anthony Gordon and Chelsea will not be an issue, which is really interesting. Romano then said that Chelsea are discussing internally of new proposal for Anthony Gordon, as opening bid with £40 million was rejected. Jacobs Ben mentioned Everton being interested in Broja. Talksport mentioned the bid of £40 million. And then we go into today, where things have significantly stepped up a little bit in regards to this saga. According to the Evening Standard, Everton manager Frank Lampard is thought to be open to selling winger Anthony Gordon to raise funds for Everton to sign players in the transfer market. That then was sort of contradicted by Joe Thomas at the Liverpool Echo, who I've met Joe Thomas, really, really lovely lad, obviously works for the Echo. He said Everton have no interest in entertaining bids for Anthony Gordon, and the club sources have also said that no bid from Chelsea has come in as of yet. Paul Joyce said Chelsea are ready to test Everton for Anthony Gordon with a new bid of £50 million. A various number of other sources reported that, and then we get to the sort of most recent bit of news and information, I suppose, about this, which is coming from David Maddock of the Mirror earlier on this evening, saying that Chelsea have bid £45 million for Anthony Gordon, and Anthony Gordon has made it clear he wants the move to Chelsea. And David Maddock then saying Everton offered Anthony Gordon a new contract 3 weeks ago, but that currently remains unsigned. As we understand, Gordon's representative have made it clear he won't sign a new deal. Now, there have been a couple of images of Anthony Gordon in London as of today or yesterday. I believe he was over there with his missus. A couple of people taking selfies with him at Euston Station. I think there were a couple of selfies taken at Harrods as well, which is a shop in London. What I would say about those is I wouldn't read too much into that, partly because Alex Iwobi was in Belfast yesterday, and I believe Delhi was somewhere else on the planet as well. That certainly wasn't Liverpool, so it's not it's not uncommon for players to travel on their days off, as proven with Alex Iwobi flying over to Belfast for whatever reason, when it's clear that Alex Iwobi won't be signing for whichever local side Belfast has. So Anthony Gordon being in London on his day off isn't really a massive surprise. I suppose the biggest surprise in all of that is that Everton have lost the opening 2 games of the season, and these players have been given 2 days off, which for me is more of an issue than Anthony Gordon being pictured in London. Now, obviously, as I said, this is a sort of it seems to have grown. The interest seems to have grown an awful lot over the last 24 hours. It's gone from Chelsea being interested in Anthony Gordon and putting a bid in to Anthony Gordon wanting the move to Chelsea, at least if that's what you are to believe. Now, as I said, there are a number of sources, The Echo, Alan Myers, all reporting that there's been no bid from Chelsea, and it's just interest at this moment. And then there's other sources, Paul Joyce, Fabrizio Romano, David Maddock, who are stating that there have been bids from Chelsea, and those bids have been, or at least a bid, and that bid has been rejected. So conflicting reports at the moment, conflicting stories that we're reading. I think one thing is quite evidently clear, and that is that there is a lot of interest in Anthony Gordon from Chelsea, and that potentially Anthony Gordon is interested in making that move happen. Now, this is a difficult one for me because this is a high-risk situation no matter which way you look at it for Everton Football Club, for Kevin Thelwell, for Frank Lampard. Obviously, Everton put a lot of trust in Anthony Gordon earlier on in the season, and certainly put a lot of faith and promise in his future. I don't think Anthony Gordon was one of the players that Everton had on their list to sell this summer, hence giving him the number 10 shirt, hence Frank Lampard coming out on multiple occasions in multiple different interviews, and talking about Anthony Gordon being an Everton player. You know, I think he even said in one interview that Anthony Gordon will be going nowhere. He's our player. He's going to have a pivotal role this season. We've given him the number 10, etc., etc., etc. Now, I've heard a phrase being used over the last 24 hours by Evertonians and by other fans as well in regards to this, and that is that every player has their price. And I've seen a couple of people saying, well, if Anthony Gordon wasn't on the list of players to sell before this interest, then why is he on the list of players to sell now? Now, what I would say to that is Jordan Pickford isn't on the list of players for Everton to sell this summer, and so he shouldn't be either, because he was excellent last season. Okay, he's not at the greatest start of the season, but he's one of our better players. However, if Everton received a £120 million bid from, let's say, Juventus, for example, for Jordan Pickford, then I don't think there'd be many Evertonians that would say, reject that. I think many Evertonians would say, accept it, go and get a replacement for 30-odd million, and then you've got £100-odd million there to mess with to go and rebuild the squad in other areas. So that is very right. Every player has their price, and there's a very realistic scenario that is that Everton 2 weeks ago had no interest in selling Anthony Gordon, and Frank Lampard, you know, wanted to keep him and wanted him to be a massive part of this season, give him the number 10 shirt, etc., etc. And now, because of a figure that has been presented to Everton, that might have changed a little bit. Now, I'm not saying that it has changed, I'm not saying that it hasn't changed, and I'm not saying that Frank Lampard is all of a sudden sitting here changing his mind because we've been offered £40-odd million from Chelsea. What I would say, as I said, is I think this is whatever decision is made is A, massive decision, and B, a decision that comes with risk. The risk of keeping Anthony Gordon is rejecting that amount of money for a player that at the moment is all potential. Now, I love Anthony Gordon. I think his desire, his commitment, his work rate, his effort is all there to be seen. Is he good enough at this moment? Absolutely not. His final product needs to improve. His ability to create chances needs to improve. His decision-making in the final third, that all needs to improve. His effort, his commitment, his desire, it's all there, and you can see he's got the brain and he's got the ability. It's just putting it together. Now, that's where this question comes into play, doesn't it? Anthony Gordon hasn't put that together yet. Now, the question is, for £50 million, do Everton take the risk on Anthony Gordon not putting it together and keeping him, or do Everton sell him and take the risk that he does put it all together and becomes a genuine top world-class player? Because I do think if Anthony Gordon can get that right and really hit those levels that he's projected to hit, he will be a genuine world-class player and he'll be a game changer, and that's the risk. Do Everton sell him for £50 million and risk him being an absolute game changer in a couple of years when we could have built our squad around him? Or do Everton keep him and risk the fact that he never reaches those levels of potential and we miss out on a massive amount of money that next year, if Anthony Gordon doesn't have a good season this season or struggles or doesn't quite hit the numbers he's expected, that £50 million price tag all of a sudden halves, if not even more so than halves, you know, next season when a team comes knocking for him. One thing I am surprised at is the report stating that Anthony Gordon wants to move to Chelsea. Now, don't get me wrong, a career in football is extremely short. Footballers do not play for very long. They're not at the top of their game for very long. And Chelsea are notoriously a club that win things. They win league titles. They win Champions League. They win domestic cups. They play in the biggest competitions in football. And they do it consistently year in, year out. So you might say, well, why does it surprise you, Cam, that Anthony Gordon wants to go to Chelsea? Well, look at Chelsea's record of bringing in young players and them being a success in Chelsea's side. You would think Anthony Gordon will have looked at, I don't know, Ross Barkley maybe, and thought, you know what, didn't quite work for Ross. Maybe would have looked at Jack Rodwell at Man City and thought, do you know what, didn't quite work for Jack. For me, Chelsea's a side that if Anthony Gordon isn't in there in the opening 2 weeks, ripping it up, turning it apart, he's probably not going to get his opportunity there. The reality of the situation is does he get in over Mason Mount? No. Does he get in over Kai Havertz? No. Does he get in over Raheem Sterling? No. So where does he get in that Chelsea side? Will he play in FA Cup games and Carabao Cup games? Probably, yeah. Will he play in the odd Champions League game for 20 minutes off the bench? Maybe, yeah. Does he get in over Conor Gallagher? I don't know. Does he get in over Armando Broja? Obviously, I know he's a striker, but I'm just talking about that forward line. I don't know. So I'm not really sure whether Anthony Gordon's, if he is wanting to leave, and obviously this is all speculation, Anthony Gordon might be sitting here watching this going, I don't even want to leave, lad, you're chatting shit. But let's say he does want to leave. I don't know whether that is fueled by, it'd be fueled by one or two things. The sort of, the fancy sort of sparkly dress that is Chelsea Football Club of winning titles and winning trophies and, you know, being in playing in those competitions, etc., etc., and being part of that and getting a medal even though you've only played 10 minutes. Or the fact that he'll probably get a considerable amount more money at Chelsea than he would at Everton. I don't know whether it's one of those two. But I would have thought, or would have liked to have thought, Anthony Gordon would be looking at it thinking, my progression as a professional footballer, where am I more likely to be given an opportunity to improve and to be given the time to improve, at Chelsea or at a club like Everton? I would have thought a club like Everton would have been the answer to that query. Now, I've said this before and I will say it again. I tweeted it out earlier, and if you follow us on Twitter, you would have seen this. And I've said it when I've spoken about Richarlison. I've said it when I've spoken about Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I've said it when I've spoken about players in the past. I've said it, you know, even before I started the channel. I've always said this. I said it about Lukaku. I said it about Barkley. For me, the buck stops at, does Anthony Gordon want to leave Everton Football Club? That is the big question. Now, we're not talking about a player who's guaranteed to score 15, 20 goals this season, because that's maybe a little bit different. You could say, well, it's not all just about what the player wants. If Anthony Gordon was guaranteed to score 20 goals and wanted to leave Everton, then you could sit there and say, do you know what? Maybe we should have a think about this. That's not Anthony Gordon. So for me, the buck starts and stops at that question. Do you want to leave Everton Football Club and join Chelsea? And like I've said, with every single player we've had in the past, I don't care how good you are at football. I don't care who you are. If you do not want to play for Everton Football Club, then please shut the door on your way out. It is as simple as that. I don't care if you're Anthony Gordon. I don't care if you're Romelu Lukaku. I don't care if you're Ross Barkley. I don't care if you're James Rodriguez. I don't care if you're Wayne Rooney. I don't care if you're Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi. I don't care if you are my nan. If you do not want to play for Everton Football Club, then do us a favour, shut the door on your way out, and please don't come back. It's as simple as that. No player is bigger than the football club. Maybe Amadou Onana, because he's 87 foot. But in all seriousness, no football player is bigger than Everton Football Club. Certainly not a young lad who is still miles off where he would like to be, you know, come his prime age. And again, I will get some people saying, well, hang on, Cam, how do you know Anthony Gordon wants to leave at the moment? It's just speculation at the moment. It's just rumours. That isn't directly referred to Anthony Gordon. I'm not sitting here saying, get Anthony Gordon out the football club, he's a disgrace, this, that and the other, because we don't know. Anthony Gordon might be sitting there now going, I don't want to leave, I want to work hard, I want to, you know, this is just all rumours, this is just all paper talk to try and cause a bit of hype. And if that's the case, then that's fine. I'm not referring to Anthony Gordon. I'm referring to any player. If you do not want to be at Everton Football Club, then see you later. There's the door. Even if you are the very best of the very best, we will find a way to cope without you, because the last thing we need at this football club after the season we've just had is players here that don't want to be here. And I'm not saying Anthony Gordon would down tools or would not care or would not give as much effort as he usually does. The reality of the situation is, even if it was a subconscious decision by Anthony Gordon, if he does not want to be here, that will be reflected in his performances, and the moment he has a bad game, he will be turned on, because everybody will know he doesn't want to be here. So it's as simple as that. I don't care if you're Anthony Gordon, Romelu Lukaku, Wayne Rooney, or Barry from down the road. If you're contacted to Everton Football Club and you don't want to be here, then see you later. It's as simple as that. See you later. Now, obviously, we don't know if that's the case with Anthony Gordon yet. Some of the rumours are suggesting that that's the case, but we don't quite know that that's the truth. But for me, that's the conversation I'd be having. Now, this all might just be, by the way, ploy by Anthony Gordon's agent to get him more money on his new contract, or to give him a better deal, or to give him better terms. It might be just that. They might be using Chelsea as a sign for Everton to up the contract or give him a longer time or whatever. We've seen it numerous times before. Ex-player won't sign a new contract in talks to join this club. Talks broken down, ex-player signs a new contract. We've seen it numerous times before. That is the opening question. Now, if Anthony Gordon doesn't want to be at Everton, then it's an easy decision for me by Frank Lampard and Kevin Thelwell. As I said, see you later, shut the door on your way out. If Anthony Gordon does want to stay at Everton, then there's a decision to be made. It is much more complex than just saying, sound, he wants to be here, keep him here, we like him, he works hard, he's great. I've said it for a while now, what Anthony Gordon brings should be the minimum. And Anthony Gordon knows that, and that's why he brings it. He knows Anthony Gordon won't be sitting here now thinking, I'm unbelievable, I'm the best player at this club. He'll be sitting here thinking, I've got to improve this part of my game. What I'm doing now is what's minimum expected of me. And that's true. And this is coming from somebody who really likes Anthony Gordon. I think he's exactly got the exact attitude you should have for a young player. And I don't blame either of his... And don't get me wrong, I don't think he's had a great start to the season. I think his last two performances have been subpar, but it isn't his fault. He's playing out of position in a formation that doesn't suit him, in a system that doesn't suit him, because we've got no striker. So I don't blame him whatsoever. And he's still not even been the worst of that front three in that time. But the decision then has to be made as to ultimately, are Everton in a position, not just financially with FFP and our financial struggles, but also given the fact that we are still desperately in need of 2 goal scorers, by the way, not one, because let's people seem to keep forgetting we've lost 2 goal scorers. We've lost Dominic Calvert-Lewin to an injury, which we won't likely probably see him until maybe October, November, maybe even post the World Cup, who knows. And we've lost Richarlison, obviously, who's left the football club to Tottenham. So we need 2 goal scorers. We probably need another central midfielder, because the Ghana Gay stuff has gone quiet. Now, whether that will pick up again, because obviously Monaco have just announced the signing of Mohamed Kamara. I don't know. Everton might just say, do you know what? We need a midfielder. We'll give you the dough that you want. I don't know. But we need 2 strikers, 2 goal scorers, another midfielder, and maybe even another wide player, especially if we're going to lose Anthony Gordon. Now, the question is if we lose Anthony Gordon, could we go out, get Ghana Gay? Because obviously there's not much financial, sort of repercussion behind that for Everton. And then maybe go and get an out-and-out striker who we know can score goals, and then somebody that can play across the 3, who's a bit more versatile, who will also score goals. That'll then cover Anthony Gordon's position, as well as having another goal scorer. A Richarlison, if you like, and then a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, if you like, if that makes sense. And that's the big question, isn't it? Can Everton afford to turn down that money for a lad who, at the moment, is all potential? Because he is. And I love Anthony Gordon, and he works hard, and he's got desire, and he's got commitment. And in an ideal world, we'd be sitting here saying, see you later, Chelsea, he's going nowhere, do us a favour and bounce. But we're not in an ideal world. We're in a position where We have to start taking these things seriously, and we have to start looking from a business point of view and from a financial point of view and thinking, what could 50 odd million pounds of clean money? And when I say clean, I don't mean that any other transfer is dirty money. What I mean is Anthony Gordon comes through Everton's academy, so it's all profit. It's £50 million of pure profit. Nothing going to anywhere except right back in to the transfer budget. You then add the FFP and the restrictions you've got around FFP and the sort of leeway you've got, and that £50 million might be able to get us 3 new players, 2 forwards and a centre midfielder. Yes, they won't be unbelievable world beaters, but will they impact Everton's season more than Anthony Gordon will? And that is the risk, because we don't know how much Anthony Gordon will impact Everton's season. Because, okay, you could say, well, hang on, he's got, and I'm just using the figure £50 million, by the way, because 40 odd million pounds being rejected, and you know, it'll be somewhere between 45 and 50, let's say. So I'm just using, they haven't bid 50. There's no real rumour for 50 at the moment. I'm just using that as an example. You know, again, I don't think the 2 previous games are a suggestion of how Anthony Gordon will perform this season, because he's been out of position, and it's unfair to look at those 2 games and judge, right, that's how he's going to play this season, because he's played out of position, and we've got no striker, we've got no way of him creating or you know, doing anything he should be doing. Maybe he could have done more, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But taking away the first couple of games, will we get more from Anthony Gordon in his natural position for the remaining 36 games of the season than we would from 2 forwards coming in? Now, it all works in hindsight. Ultimately, if I was to say to you now, I can guarantee you Everton sell Anthony Gordon for £50 million or £45 million. I'm not going to tell you how many goals or assists he'd have scored this season, but I can guarantee you the players Everton bring in to replace him, one of them will get 15 goals, one of them will get 12 goals, and you'll bring a midfielder in who will avoid you conceding 15 goals this season. I think most people would go, snatch your hand off of that. Happy days. Happy days. Now, obviously, I could sit here and do the opposite and say, you sell Anthony Gordon for 50 million, you spend your money on 3 players, 2 strikers, one of them gets 3 goals, one of them gets 2 goals, and your midfielder is absolutely shite. Then we sit here and go, well, what's the point? You may as well keep Anthony Gordon. That's football, and that's why I'm saying this is a risk either way for Kevin Thelwell and Frank Lampard. And it is a risk if we keep Anthony Gordon, because if Anthony Gordon has a bad season and doesn't live up to the expectation of us and maybe, you know, the Premier League, then we Everton get a £12 million bid next summer. We're all sitting here saying, why didn't we sell him for the 45 when we had the deal? So when we had the bid on show, sorry. So this is a tough one for me. This is a really, really tough one, because in an ideal world, Anthony Gordon is the type of player you should be building your team around. And I never like to see young players with potential that very clearly care and very clearly want to play for this football club and want to work and battle for this football club. I never like to see them leaving. The reality is Everton are a selling club at the moment. We are a selling club, and in order to get better, we will have to sell. Now, we've already sold Richarlison this summer. Did I think we'd be selling Anthony Gordon as well? No, I didn't. But if we do, that means we've sold Richarlison, we've sold Gordon, and we've lost Dominic Calvert-Lewin to an injury. Now, what I would say is, I think the fear for Anthony Gordon's transfer, and I think a lot of Blues that don't want Anthony Gordon to leave the football club, even for the money being touted, is because there's a fear of a lack of trust in this Everton board to replace Anthony Gordon. The reality of the situation is this board still hasn't replaced Richarlison. Now, okay, Kevin Thelwell and Frank Lampard have done some sensible business this summer. I think bringing Onana in is a really good bit of business. I think, you know, bringing in James Tarkowski and Connor Cody is a really big bit of business, a really good bit of business. I think like McNeil's an okay bit of business as well, but they haven't replaced the goal scorer that we lost in Richarlison. Can we afford to not replace the desire, the commitment of Anthony Gordon? No, we can't, along with Richarlison. So I understand why people are saying, well, you could sit here all you want, Cam, and say we bring in 2 forwards that score 15 goals each, but where's the proof that Everton's board have got the ability to do that? Because we've had no proof over the years. Anthony says call it a Rooney moment. I think there's a big difference. I understand the comparison. Anthony Gordon, academy prospect, being offered a lot of money from one of the top 5, top 6 clubs, big 6 clubs, whatever you want to call it. And, a project of our academy. I think the big difference with Wayne Rooney is, now correct me if I'm wrong here, I was very, very young at the time, but I strictly remember over the years reading some people saying, and this isn't coming from, I've watched the game, but I wasn't there, obviously. I've watched the games when Wayne Rooney was at Everton as a 16-year-old. But a lot of people will reflect on Wayne Rooney not only being the best player at Everton, but being the best player in the Premier League at 16 years of age, which is incredibly different to Anthony Gordon being 21 years old and being a good, decent level Premier League player. He's not 16 years old, considerably better than anybody else in the league, is he? So there's a little bit of a difference there. But I just, as difficult as it is, and as much as I don't want us to be selling these types of players, and we should be looking to build a team around Anthony Gordon, and we should be looking to build a team around these young players, and Anthony Gordon leaving Everton shouldn't have even been a discussion. The reality is 50 million quid, and the saying is right, everybody has got their price, and I like Anthony Gordon. And if Anthony Gordon stayed at Everton this summer, and if Anthony Gordon turned around and said, no, I don't want to leave, I want to stay, and Everton said, well, there you go, he wants to stay, so we want to keep him, he wants to stay, happy days, we move on, I'd have no problem with that. I'd have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. But I would find it difficult for Everton to receive a £50 million bid for the player Anthony Gordon is now, and to reject it, because as I said at the very start of the live stream, he's not a £50 million player now. He may be a £50 million player in the coming years. He's not a £50 million player now. Whether you like it or not, whether you want to admit it or not, he isn't. Whether he will be or not in 3, 4, 5 years' time, he might be a £100 million player, and we might be sitting here scratching our heads going, why the fuck did we let him go? But he isn't a £50 million player now. And I struggle to think that Everton would receive that level of money and reject it. Even though we might want to keep him, even though we might have had it in our plans to keep him, I struggle to think we would reject that amount of money for him. I just don't know. And ultimately, it's a difficult one. As I said, it's a risk decision. It's a risk if we keep him and turn down an amount of money that we may never get again for him, an amount of money that would significantly help us to improve the team, and it's a risk if we sell him and he goes on to be absolutely unbelievable. Now, a lot of people will say, what do you think Everton should do, Cam? I think it all depends, to be honest with you, on what the next bid is, I suppose. Now, Chelsea started their bidding for Cucurella at £40-odd million and ended up buying him for £60-odd million. A good left-back from Brighton. He's not unbelievable. He's a very good player. He's not, oh my God, he's the best in the world. If Everton can try and get as much money out of Chelsea, let's say Chelsea say £50 million, they're done. Answer me this. Can Everton afford to reject £50 million for a player who scored 4 goals and got 3 assists last season in 35 games? £50 million, that is, as I said, clean, all profit, and could be reinvested into bringing in 3 players that could significantly improve Everton Football Club over the course of the next couple of weeks and give us a season where we have a solid season in the Premier League. And in order to do that, we're losing an academy prospect who could go on to be world class, but could go on to not live up to that potential, i.e. Ross Barkley, Jack Rodwell, etc., etc. I don't think there's a chance he'll become the next Wayne Rooney, because, as I said, Wayne Rooney at 16 was the best player in the country at that age. But there is every potential he'll go on to be a top quality footballer. And that's the risk, isn't it? It's sad. It's sad because, we should be in a position, after the money we've spent over the years, we should be in a position to be sitting here saying, well, we've got a boss team already and we've got a boss young player coming through. You won't see City. You won't see Phil Foden being linked with a move away from City and them needing to sell him to reinvest in their squad. You won't see, I don't know, one of Liverpool's young lads being linked with a move away from them. You might do now because they're absolutely shite and they can't win a game of footy, but you won't see one of Liverpool's young players being linked with a move away from them because they need to reinvest the money into their squad. But that's, I suppose, the position that Everton are in at the moment, is we need that reinvestment. And for Everton to lose one player and bring in enough money to bring in 3 or 4, it's a bit different to the Richarlison situation, because Richarlison was guaranteed double figures every season. Guaranteed double figures, was our goal scorer, was the player that we all knew you could look upon in big games to come up with big moments. Anthony Gordon isn't that yet. He might be that, but he isn't that yet. And that's why it's a difficult decision. If you're asking me honest opinion, I don't think Everton turned down a £50 million bid for Anthony Gordon, if I'm being honest. I might be wrong. And from what I'm hearing out the football club, and from what a lot of rumours are suggesting, that Everton are stating he's not for sale and Everton don't want to sell him, and Everton are standing firm and this, that and the other, and Frank Lampard wants to build around him, and that's fine. But I just think if Everton received £50 million, I'd think, do you know what? Sometimes it's a bit too good to say no. But the reality of the situation is, as I said before, and I know I'll get a comment saying, you just repeat yourself, Cam, but I am going to repeat myself because there's more people in than there was before, and I think this is an important point that we need to, talk about a little bit more often in these types of situations. If you are enjoying, by the way, please hit the like button. 150 odd people watching at 11:15 at night, which is just amazing. If you are enjoying, please hit that like button. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. The point I said before is the point I will stick with, and the point that I will bring home with any player in any situation, in any time frame of Everton Football Club. The first thing I think Frank Lampard and Kevin Thelwell both need to do tomorrow is sit down with Anthony Gordon. If this news is true, as I said, there's certain reports saying there hasn't even been a bid from Chelsea, so we don't really know what's going on at the moment. But if the reports are true and there have been bids from Chelsea, or a bid from Chelsea, I think Lampard and Thelwell need to sit down with Anthony Gordon tomorrow and say, do you want to leave Everton Football Club? And if not, then let's work on getting this new contract. And if so, then that's it. That's the decision made for me. If Anthony Gordon turns around and goes, yes, I want to leave Everton Football Club, that's the decision made for me. Sound. We'll haggle with Chelsea. We'll get as much money as we can. We'll shake your hand. We'll say good luck, and we'll move you on. And then I don't even think I think if you were to, I think most Evertonians now that, and there'll be a lot of Evertonians in the comments now, by the way, I haven't read through them yet, but I know there'll be a lot of Blues in the comments that are very much, we should keep Anthony Gordon and we shouldn't sell him and we shouldn't get rid of him. But I don't think there'd be many Blues that and we won't hear this, of course, because this will be private conversations and it won't get leaked, but I don't think there'll be many Blues if we all got a live streamed sort of fly on the wall camera of Kevin Thelwell's office tomorrow, and the 3 of them are sitting there, and Anthony Gordon says, yes, I want to leave Everton. I don't think there'll be many Blues that'd say, oh no, we should still keep him. I think most people would go, Sandy doesn't want to be here, get rid of him. Because that for me, as I said before, I will say it again, I don't care who you are, I don't care how good you are at football, if you do not want to play for Everton Football Club, close the door on your way out. It's as simple as that. Especially if you are a player that we can make a significant amount of money from for what has been very little end product so far. And that's not me having a go at Anthony Gordon, that's just a fact. And as I said, this comes from somebody who really likes Anthony Gordon and wouldn't mind him staying at the football club. But yeah, it's certainly interesting. I understand the worry, and to be honest, it's a big worry of mine. Who do we replace him with? Who do we bring in? How do we reinvest that money? I think we've had a decent summer so far in terms of the players. I'm absolutely sweltering, by the way. I've seen somebody before say the heating's on. The heating isn't on. It's just 85,000 degrees in this room and the fan isn't doing very much. I've seen somebody say before, who do we replace him with? And that, I suppose, is the big question, isn't it? Who do we replace him with? Who comes in to score the goals? Who comes in to provide that energy, to provide that little bit of flair? Who comes in to provide that? I think what Anthony Gordon does really well is he troubles defenders. He gives defenders something to think about. When he's on the pitch, defenders go, oh shit, how do I deal with this lad? I don't think we've got anybody else in the team that does that. Damari Gray definitely doesn't do it. I don't think Dwight McNeil does it. So we'd need to bring in that fear factor again in a player. Ismail Sarr, maybe an option. We've just seen Eze for Crystal Palace absolutely tear Liverpool to bits. Again, wonderful, wonderful sign. I said it when they signed him. He's a wonderful sign. And there's players out there. It's just about who we go in and bring in. But yeah, let's get into some of the live comments then before we finish, see what everybody has to say. Loads and loads and loads of live comments, which is amazing. 172 people watching. If you could get the likes up, that'd be amazing. If you could get to 50 likes, that'd be brilliant. If you are new to the channel, by the way, don't forget to subscribe. We will be back tomorrow with the game review to Everton's loss to Aston Villa at the weekend, and we'll also be back with any sort of breaking transfer news that we do hear of as well regarding Anthony Gordon or anybody else. Alex says, hello mate, what's happening? Liam says, yes Cam lad, yes mate. Phil says, hello Cam. V-Rail says, yes Cam, what's happening? Will says, alright Cam lad, what's happening? Alex says, can't stand any of our players except the new signings in Pickford. Phil says, take 50 million and buy a CM and a striker or two. We definitely need two. We definitely need two strikers for me, mate. We need another centre midfielder, and we definitely need two forwards, or at least one out-and-out striker, and then one sort of wide player that can play across the three. Because that would obviously fill Anthony Gordon's role as well. Has he not signed his contract offer? Well, no, he hasn't. He hasn't signed his new contract. Buzz says, kind of snaky if he does leave. I don't know if it is, to be honest with you. Listen, football's a very cutthroat sport, and players leave clubs, and players want to move on, and this, that, and the other all the time. And listen, if he wants to leave, he wants to leave. But as I said, if he wants to leave, then I don't think Everton should be breaking any bones to force him to stay at the football club. Hi all, says Philip. Everton memes feed says, I don't usually catch these live, but I watch everything. Lucky to catch this one live though. Thank you very much, my mate. I really do appreciate it. Tammy says, I'm a Chelsea fan. I don't understand this Anthony Gordon link. I don't think he's that good. To be fair, Everton is suffering financially, aren't they? We are. Matt says, Cam, lad, he has a lot of pace and bangs his chest and runs about a lot. It's a no-brainer. Sam says, I think as a fan base, we overrate Gordon. He doesn't score and he's lazy. Listen, what I don't want to do is I don't want to get on the whole he's absolutely shite, because he isn't shite. And I think had Anthony Gordon have turned around yesterday and put a video on Twitter saying, up the fucking toffees, I'm going nowhere, I'm signing my new contract, we wouldn't really be having these discussions. So I don't really subscribe to I understand where people are coming from, because as I said, his final product is nowhere near good enough, and we've already addressed the fact that needs to improve. His ability in front of goal needs to improve, his goal scoring, all of that needs to improve. But I'm not going to subscribe to he's absolutely shite and he only runs around a bit, because there's clear that there's talent there, and there's clear that there's the potential there. What I do believe is that much money for a player that isn't at the level that would warrant that much money yet, I think would be hard to turn down, if that makes sense. Cam lad, give you Gilmore, Batshuayi and Brozier on loan plus 35 million for... No, I wouldn't accept any swap deal for any player. I'm not into it, mate, to be honest with you. I want, if you want to give us 50, it's 50 straight up hard cash, and then we decide if we want to go and buy Brozier or Gilmore or Batshuayi. For me, it's pure hard cash. Nothing, no player swap, none of that nonsense. If we want to bring in a couple of players from Chelsea, then we do that in a separate deal. I have a 32 Watt fan, says David. I don't even know what that means, mate, but I'm going to assume it's dead good. Kevin says, sell. Good to see us hold now for some money for the change of the toffees. He's not shite, he's okay, but he'll never be great. We don't know that, says Peter. He might be. He might be. He is replaceable, says Queensbury. He's 21, nearly 22. Any top players are already ripping it up. Ivan Toney, Troy Deeney, Brozier. Troy Deeney. Okay, now that is desperate, isn't it? Brozier, Gallagher plus cash for Gordon. No, I just want pure cash, mate. Pure cash, Soph. Pure cash. Top of likes, Chief says Sam is right, mate. The Knights Rider says, Cam, you signed two strikers in the midfielder. Who would you choose? You know what? I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know, because I'd have to sit down and look. If we were given 50 million, I think that ultimately the landscape changes, doesn't it? We go from being linked with players that, we go from being linked with a Che Adams to maybe being linked with somebody who might be a little bit more clinical, might be a little bit more sort of a guarantee. That all of a sudden the landscape changes in the market that we're shopping in. We go from shopping in a very, very sort of niche market to being open to players of a little bit more value and with a little bit more potential and a little bit more ability. So that'd have to be something I sat down and looked at, to be honest with you, mate. Selling Gordon will kill us, says John. Interesting, different side of the story there. Troy Deeney is better than Rondon, but so is me Nan. So I'm only messing. Rondon done all right the other day, but no. Let's not entertain a conversation about Troy Deeney. Martin Serrier, the best replacement. Yeah, good player. Whether or not he come is a different question, but good player. But yeah, look, there you go. We'll wait and see what happens. Do I think Anthony Gordon will be an Everton player come the end of this transfer window? It all depends on what that next bid is from Chelsea. Chelsea might say, do you know what? We don't think he's worth that, so we're going to walk away. Chelsea might say, actually, do you know what? Yeah, we'll give you that. We'll give you them. We'll give you that money. And Everton might say, do you know what? That's too good to turn down. We don't know. One thing I know is that whenever any news or information or any of this breaks, we'll be live on the channel talking about it. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Please hit that notification bell as well. That'll keep you up to date whenever we go live, whenever we're doing a live stream. And if you have enjoyed this one, please leave a like. I'm going to go because I'm in the process of fixing my sleeping schedule and I'm absolutely sweating my rear end off, to be perfectly honest with you. We will be back tomorrow with the game review to Everton's 2-1 defeat to Aston Villa at Villa Park, so don't forget to look out for that one. And as I said, any news and information for signings we'll be back with as well. But massive thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed this one, please leave a like. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. If you're watching the YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below and we'll get involved with as many of them as we can as well. But massive thank you all for watching, and we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.